Hey there, Simone here, as always, with some insights for what to pay attention to when you're getting ready to get your business into a place where you can actually scale it. So here we are. It's time to get really focused to make sure that we can actually really knock it out of the park in the next few months and going forward. So how do we make a business scalable and sustainable? So one thing that we found with our clients is it's really important that, first of all, before we go anywhere in business, that we get really clear on what we actually need to pay attention to so we don't lose ourselves in just being all about business. So what makes a business sustainable is also having that personal side dialed in. So we want to pay attention to that. We pay attention to our personal, our mental side, which is our head, our inspiration, and pay attention to our family, have that dialed in. That's our love, our heart. And then also making sure that when we focus on the business, we look at our business as a playground, which, yes, gives us everything that we need in life. And at the same time, that's the first focus, is that life is not about the business is about our life. So that's just kind of a little bit of setup in here. But now the next piece is, okay, so now that we have that, what do we actually need to do to get really focused so we can reach those extraordinary results? So one thing that we've been talking about is, leaders, of course, always go first. So when we're looking at getting us as leaders really dialed in so that in this next year we're all really focused and we are paying attention to how we support the business first, the biggest question is, what's our highest value in the business? So with our clients, we teach them to do a leadership plan. So that leadership plan is designing your role as a leader. And for a lot of our clients, it's really tricky at first because it means that you have to probably let go of a large percentage of the stuff that you are doing right now. Because when you're honest with yourself, and we have in the past we've talked about how to do a time study, and I'll talk about that again in a month or two. But it's once you really pay attention to how you spend your time, once you define like what of those buckets of things that you're doing are actually of the highest and best value for your business, and how much of your time is spent kind of in the nitty-gritty day-to-day operational stuff, fixing mistakes, fighting fires, helping everybody else, generally what comes out is that most leaders spend very little of their time in a strategic mode versus most of their time in transactional. So what we always ask our clients is, what are the 5% of your giant list of all the things that you generally do that only you can do? So that's number one, to figure out what is the 5% on your giant to-do list that really only you can do when you're honest with yourself. Because pretty much what we are finding is that all the other stuff, somebody else could take over. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but as a leader, your focus is to get your team dialed in to a place where 95% of that stuff comes off your plate so you can focus on what really matters, which is making those connections, growing your network, making sure the money is flowing, coming up with the innovation, and leading your leaders. So that's really your wheelhouse versus everything else that you're doing. So with that in mind, now the question that we want to ask the team to make sure that they're in the right place is, there's really two big questions. Are you really good at what you do? And are you adding the highest value to the company today? So we just asked that about you. Are you really good at what you do? Are you only doing that 5% that only you can do? And are you adding the highest value to the company today? So when you look at yourself and you've carved out that 5%, one of the things that we know by now is that the only team members who are here to stay are the ones who are aligned with our mission, our vision, and core values. So you have to ask yourself the same question. Do you know your core values by heart, and are you 100% aligned with them? This is a really good time to question that, because for one thing, your company core values may be over here, but what you need to do this next year to make sure that you're on point should be in alignment with those core values, but the focus might be very specific, because when you think about it, what of the stuff that hasn't been working because there's some values that are missing, some standards, some beliefs that are missing between you and your leaders and the rest of the team that are getting in the way of getting stuff done at that higher and higher level. So that A player, and that includes you, knows core values of the company by heart and lives by them. So do you live by your core values, and do you live by your growth values? Core values meaning the general company core values that you figured out a while ago, and then your growth values, those values that are missing right now that would enable you to get to that next level. So that's number one. Also, here's another one. Another thing that makes you contribute the highest value to the company today, and that also makes that same thing happen for your team, is that each one of you, and I know this seems funny when I talk about the company leader, but each one of you on the team, and you included, knows the company strategy by heart and how their roles contribute to that strategy. So one of the things that I'm saying here is that you have to know what your company's strategy is this year, not just your to-do list, not just what you're hoping to accomplish at some point or other, but what's the strategy behind your goals and expectations that will actually get you to that next level of business. So you have to answer that for yourself, and then you have to make sure that every single person on your team can answer that. Do they know the strategy? Do they understand the strategy and how their role contributes to that strategy? There's also the next question. What is expected of each one of you, you included, and why is it important? So when you answer that for yourself, it's a really good question to ask every month or so, because the expectation of you will change throughout the year as well, because your expectation and your team's expectation right now may be that you're the one who jumps in when the going gets tough. You're the one who takes care of mistakes. You're the one who's fighting the fires. You're the one who's fixing mistakes, which is all the stuff that makes you feel maybe needed and wanted and valuable. But when you really think about, that's all the stuff that's distracting you from actually doing the stuff that you should be doing. So one of the things that has to happen in your mind first and then in your team's minds is that has to change, so that all that saving, operational, fixing, all that stuff, that is actually a huge distraction to your role right now. So you need to step out of that, and this needs to become part of their role so they can take care of that. However, right now they're most likely used to, this is what you do, so this is their expectation of you. So it's up to you to change this expectation with them so that they realize that you are no longer taking this on, and that you're going to do whatever it takes to get them the skills, the mindset, the courage to take that over so that they can contribute at the highest value of the company. So that is the third piece. And then we need to know, every single one on the team needs to know how exactly they perform their responsibilities. So part of that is we all need to grow in our roles. So when you think about every person performing their responsibilities at the highest level possible, what needs to change going forward? with every single person on your team. And those are the discussions that you have in your one-on-ones with your team, so that you can find out, like, where are people stuck? Where can you help them get unblocked? Where can you support them? What are some stories that are telling themselves that are keeping them right now from performing at that highest level? And that's also really important, again, for you to ask of yourself. Do you know exactly how to perform your responsibility? And again, the switch here, the change is that it's important for you to look at, instead of what you've been doing in the last few years, where you were stuck in a lot of the doing part, what is your responsibility going forward, so that you can contribute to the highest value of the company today? So for a lot of you, that will be a really big change, because that's not how you've been operating. So I invite you to really spend some time with that, so that you can let go of everything that's distracting you and look at what things you may have to learn, what connections you may have to make, what events you may have to attend, and how visible you may have to get to really be that expansive CEO who can open doors for the company going forward. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's kind of a stuck place, because they love doing what they're doing, but they're not necessarily the person who wants to take this company into public. They don't really want to do the schmoozing stuff. They don't really want to do the networking stuff. But here's the thing. As a CEO, that's one of your most important jobs. Getting public, being the face of the company, making connections, schmoozing, all that good stuff that may not be what you want to do, is at some point when you really need that connection, when you really need that new rock star, when you really need that resource that somebody else can provide, but you haven't made that connection, now you're stuck. And this is something you have to build throughout. And I would say in the last 2-3 years, we've all gotten a little lazy on that, because we all got a lot more insular. So we've all gotten used to just kind of staying in our little corner, not really connecting with people, staying on our own. And we have lost that drive to be out in the world and really connect with people and make those connections happen that could be incredibly important for the company at some point. So you have to redefine what it is that you're performing, your responsibilities at the level that the company needs you to perform them going forward. And then, of course, for you, this might be an easier question to answer, but everybody needs to know how their life will improve when their objectives and those objectives of the company meet. So when we think about growing a rockstar team, and when you think about being that really high-level CEO, there can't be a difference between how you look at your life and how you look at your business. And for your team members, it's the same thing, that their life goals have to be in really close connection with the company goals. So we have to know why we're here. Every single person on your team has to know, why am I here? What am I trying to reach? What am I trying to contribute? Why am I here? Why am I putting all this effort in? And especially when you have team members who've been around for a long time, that question could get kind of muddy. And they may not have really thought about that answer for a while. So when you have those growth discussions with your team members, it's really important to raise that question. Why are you here? What are you contributing? What's your benefit for being here? What are you doing going forward that will raise your value to another level? When you think about how you turn down churn, how you help people stay really engaged, how you help them to be forward-thinking, strategic, inspired, and be really those rock stars on your team, it's because they ask that question and they answer that question for themselves. How is my life better? How does my life improve when I am part of the objectives of this business where I'm spending all my time and my efforts? So those are some easy questions to answer, and they're really important questions to ask when you're looking at upgrading the level of performance for yourself and for your team. And you always have to ask those questions of yourself before you can even ask your team. So I hope that gives a little insight, a little help for this week. And if you need any more help, we have a brand new training out there that you can find at bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com. And take the training, go through it, see if you have any questions, and you can connect with us later so that you have more help. I wish you all the best and have a fantastic week.